Why is it important that a person in their 20s, or just almost in their 20s, has a powerful sense of self-worth? Why would that be important?
It's an enabler.
Or a limiter?
Yeah.
It's an enabler or a limiter. I'll give you a simple story. You like my stories, don't you? It's okay. All right. I was in the 5th grade. Many years ago.
That was
The half 5th grade back then?
that was like 12 years ago, right?
That was as far as it went. You got out to 5th grade, you were done. You were in
This is the one in school.
Okay.
The bus just
You
showed
could
up
go
on the
out
farm.
and, gee, pause, run that mule and plow that field. Okay. And in this gigantic, ancient old school building, we had art class. And my teacher in the art class was the most, without exception, she was the Leonardo da Vinci of our entire society. She had incredible talent as an artiste. Her name was Miss Carter, but she always made us pronounce it Cartier.
So obviously she had plenty of artistic.
She was deeply into artistic. She could take a piece of raw walnut and turn it into a horse that looked like it run you right over, or a lion, or anything else. She had incredible talent. Miss Cartier. She eventually became Mrs. Hamilton. I just saw that she had celebrated her 90th birthday. She had these wild eyes that just were intense. I mean, it was like she was living at 150% of her candle power. I mean, she was ready to blow a gasket at every minute. Hair was just flying in every direction and unkempt in every way, and she was just this super intense person. And
Too much coffee.
I was impressed with her. And one day she gave us an assignment. I had no idea what it was. I wasn't paying that close of attention. After all, it was 5th grade. I wanted to be outside playing softball. And the window of the classroom looked out on the softball diamond, and beyond that to a row of houses, and beyond that the lake that we called the slime pond, and then the chapmunk beyond that. It was a colorful place to live.
Sounds like it.
And she apparently had said something along the lines of, we want you to draw something completely out of your imagination. Just completely out of your own realm, of your own creativity. And because I was bored and lazy, I just drew what I saw out the window. And after I worked on it a while, she came over to me and she said, Bobby Douglas, you are the least creative person I have ever met. 5th grade. I just turned 70. I still remember. What does that tell you about my self-worth?
You do not think you're very creative.
At least for a while. In fact, I was still in, I had gone to college in Ohio, and the first class that they had was a big assembly, brought in all the freshmen. They sat in this big room, and somebody got up, and one speaker after them, we are here as a university to bring out all the creativity that lies within you, and to make you the most creative thinking people anywhere in our society. And I laughed and said to my friends, they've got their hands full here because I'm the least creative person around. 5th grade, a freshman in college. That's a long time.
And look at you now, you made a car out of wood.
And a lot of other things.
And a lot of other things.
One day it struck me I am taking a chunk of my self-worth from the random words of a very crazy lady that I would never, ever in my wildest imagination go to for counseling or personality coaching. And I took it hook, line, and sinker and made it my own. Now think about what my life would have been like if God hadn't suddenly opened my eyes and said, "What a dumb thing to say about yourself." Do you know what? We do it.
Yep.
We do it. I'm the dumb one in our family. I'm the stupid one that doesn't get along with anybody. I'm the one who's always getting in trouble. I'm the one that does this or doesn't do that. And I can't do math. And I'm the one who doesn't have any ability in this area or that area. And I'm the bad son or the good son. It happened that I was the good son. All right? And that becomes our worth within ourselves. It's what we repeat about who we are, what we believe about who we are. So what does self-worth mean? Where does it come from? It comes from other people, which makes it the dumbest phrase ever recorded. Your self-worth doesn't come from self. It comes from somebody else. Yes. As dumb as that sounds, you do not give yourself your self-worth. You don't own it. It comes from somebody else. And if you happen to end up in the boot camp, in the military, they will tell you exactly what your worth is. You better not take it seriously. Now, that's laugh. I listened to all of it. By that time, I'd already come to the realization. So when Mulcahy was my company commander, did I ever tell you about Mulcahy? Mulcahy was a senior chief. Every 5 years, you get a golden bar on your dress uniform. He was sort of small. He was only about this tall. And of course, I mean, his arms weren't long. But that meant that his whole arm was filled with yellow hash marks down his arm. He'd been in the military that long. And he hated the fact that I was taller than he was. So every time he wanted to chew me out, he would do this, standing in front of me, grab a hold of my shirt, pull my face down to level with his, and yell right in my nose. Try not to laugh. It was hilarious. I laughed all the way through boot camp. I spent hours and hours and hours on punishment they called the grinder. And the instruction was, work him until the smile goes away. But the more they worked me, the dumber it got. And I said, you really can't do anything, because that made me tired. I was a very bad soldier. But I had already determined my self-worth. Nobody was telling me who I was. Nobody was telling me what I wasn't. Here's the thing. Your worth must be very seriously considered. If you think you're something and you're not, get ready for a fall. If you've got yourself made up that you think you're pretty hot stuff, and you're pretty sharp, and you're really after it, you've got it cold, get ready. But it's part of the reason we're powerful people. Guys like Prince, guys like Elvis, guys like, you know, very powerful, very famous people. They hear all these people say, what a great person you are, what a great talent you are, what a great this, what a great that you are. And they keep pumping them up, but they're not. And they know it. And then suddenly they just blow up. There's no one there who can give them a reality check and say, look, you got a big problem here. you're an addict of the first order. You gotta get some help. So if you've got your self-worth already locked down and you think you're pretty sharp, it's a good idea to double check, get a second opinion, all right? But most people, and I'm talking about you and I, no, just us, we go through stages. When we are pre-adolescent, almost all of our identity comes from our parents. Okay? You remember the chart that we had over here, the parent, adult, child chart? We accept their identity of us without much judgment. We accept it, and they say, okay, you're the smart one, or you're the good-looking one, or you're the ugly one, or however it works. You know, I mean, I can't say what your situation is, but they're always talking about us. They always are. They introduce us to all of their friends the same way. This is the one who is so shy, they never say anything. They all tell us exactly who we are. And then we accept it. It becomes our worth, our identity. Then there's something happens. It happens just about the time we find ourselves in that age of accountability. And all of a sudden our parents or our family don't become the central core of our identity. It becomes our friends. And they become outside the family. This drives parents absolutely out of their skull, because this person who used to take their identity or their role from them as the family, now all of a sudden they realize they're trying everything they can to be like their friends, or to be liked by their friends, or to be a part of the group. My daughter had a group of friends they called the Fat Friends. And they spelled it P-H-A-T, fat friends. None of them were fat. But they all had big hair, I'll give them that. All right? It was back in the 80s. So the Fat Friends became the source of identity. They ran together, they hung out together, they shared together, and that became their identity. All right? And eventually, over time, you kind of morph as you grow and you take on different ones, but you'll find that you have actually, if you define right now who you are in your own mind, make a list of 10 things that you are, or are not, you will almost, in every one of those categories, say, this is what my friends would say about me. Your self-worth comes from them. Okay? Now, that's fine as long as it's positive. You don't have a Miss Cartier in your life. What happens if your life wasn't all that pleasant and you had some real characters in your life? Remember, I actually want you to come together as a 2020 group and watch. I can only imagine. All right, the movie? Because that is the story of someone whose self-worth came from a distorted, crazed, addicted father, and his entire identity was wrapped up into what he had been told he was during the early growing up years. And then he had to find that God's love and God's forgiveness started to impact on him, and how did that change him, and how did he finally have to cope with that? I can only imagine it's a great movie about Christian music. Mercy Me is a wonderful group, and I can only imagine it's a fantastic song. But the story of the movie is this metamorphosis of a man from a very poor upbringing to where he finally realized how to have real worth that would value. Okay, so let's just think about self-worth for a second. If you have your worth and it comes from somebody else, what happens if we lose our self-worth? How would you lose your self-worth? What are some of the potential ways you might do that?
loss of your friends?
To be honest, Brian, you got a job in St. Louis, and you go out there and there's not a person around you, and your boss just hates you. I hope that doesn't happen. I want you right here, okay? But your boss will tell you what your worth is. Your coworkers will tell you what your worth is. When I was in the Navy, I smoked 3 packs of cigarettes a day.
Dang.
You know why? Everybody expected me to. It was the norm. If you didn't smoke, you didn't get coffee breaks, if you want to call them that. We would call them that today. You got smoke breaks. You were given permission to leave your workspace, go out on the fantail of the ship, which was sort of like a hangout. It was right underneath the flight deck of the aircraft carrier. It was a big open space, and you could hang out there and smoke your brains out, and then go back to work after a few minutes. It was the only break you had. If you didn't smoke, you didn't get to smoke break.
It's not fair.
So I was an addictive person. I still am. I'm very, very easily habituated. All right? I have to watch everything I do, because if I do it for 30 days, it gets locked into me. Okay? I have to constantly watch myself that I'm not. Okay, so I already know that about, that is reality. That's not something somebody says about me. Okay? And I went cold turkey the day I quit, was discharged from the Navy, and I was no longer a part of my identity, and I was done, and that was the end of it. Okay? But you see how easily we pick up things. There were only 2 men in my experience in the military who had the strength of their own identity enough to say, no, I'm not doing that. Only 2. Everybody else will. So how can you, let's say you lose your friends, or your girlfriend walks away like somebody else, or you lose an important person in your life that you've depended on to give you that strength to stand up there. Or you lose your job. Or you retire. 2008, I lost my job, 58 years old. There wasn't a single business within 300 miles who would hire a 58-year-old man for anything. 2008. The recession.
Yeah, recession, yeah.
33% of all the businesses in Florida went out of business, closed them up, boarded them up. Think about all those people. So how do you keep your self-worth? How do you do that? Well, there are 2 or 3 things. Failure, moral failure, dishonesty. There's a lot of things you can do to lose your standing in the community. Man, I could make a whole laundry list. Let's say you lied to a friend and they found out. I can make it even worse. You lied to your fiance. Now what are you going to do?
Go find a new fiance.
It's better that way, Steve. I'll be honest with you. It's better to start from scratch than to try and recover. No, I'm totally.
Lots and lots of flowers.
Build yourself a doghouse and live there.
No. I'm sorry. That should have been a whole different response than I gave.
And that's on camera.
Yeah, but I'm the editor. I get to cut it out. This never happens, Steve. Just
All right, retake here.
Take 2. You will always fail. And there will be things about what you do or what you say or what you try to accomplish that just is completely wrong. All right? Judy has a wonderful program that she used to watch. It was some kind of a love story or something along. And one of the storylines was they put on virtual reality glasses, and the man watched bathing beauties on the beach or whatever. But when the wife put the glasses on, she was watching him say, "I'm sorry, sweetheart, I was wrong. I was really, really wrong. I was so wrong. I was wrong. I was way wrong." Because that was her fantasy that she could actually hear him say that. So when we actually stop and think, you're going to foul up. You're going to do that. Okay? So how do you face someone who looks at you and says, "You're not the person I expected. You're not the person I wanted. Didn't sign up for this." There's a list, a very short list of things that can happen that cause us to lose our dignity, our self-worth, self-esteem. As I told you, I spent some time with the black group of men in the college situation. They didn't earn someone's disrespect. It was just there. They had to live with it. How do you live with that when it's baked into you? It has been taught to you from the earliest days of your life that you do not have the same value as all the people who surround you. I had an English professor back in those days, freshman English, composition I guess it was. And she turned to my friend, Johnny Hill, and she said, "You black people are all the same. You have the attitude of servitude." I still remember. You know what she was saying? You have become convinced that you do not have the same value as everybody else. An attitude of second-class citizenship. Was that really their reality? No. A black president, 8 years, elected twice. Did he have an attitude of servitude? Nobody could have. If you see the riots and Black Lives Matter and all the other, you're looking at some of these things that are coming out saying, I resist the idea I'm somehow less than you. So how do we regain worth that somebody has said it's not for us, it's not who we are? Well, there's all kinds of ways to regain your self-worth. There's all wonderful, wonderful plethora of possibilities. You want to become the strongest guy? Do bodybuilding. But you got weak knees, and I'm sorry, I'm not. If you say, okay, I'm going to become the strongest guy? Did I ever tell you the story of the Russian weightlifter that was my hero? His name was Alexiev. And as I was growing up, he was the ruling world champion of weightlifting. He was a massive fellow. Gigantic, huge man. He was so powerful. And he had this wonderful technique of going right up to the limit of the world record and stopping just 1 ounce or something short of the record. Then everybody else would lift and they would all fail. And then he would take the extra weights and put it on the bar and break his own record. It was like he was unstoppable. Over and over and over again, he would put just enough weight on the bar to break his own record. He would get all kinds of accolades. He was wonderful. And he had this gigantic, enormous, worldwide, Alexian was the most powerful. And he was so crafty to be able to stay on top of his game for so long. And then I found out the truth. He was married to this little tiny gal who was a librarian. And after he won his final competition, 70-some records, I think it was 72 if I remember right, he turned to his trainer and he said, now maybe she'll appreciate me.
Oh, what's that?
The whole world was saying, Lexa, you're awesome. But his wife never did. See, self-worth. If you want your self-worth, become the biggest, the strongest, the baddest, the dirty Harry of all, I mean, I don't care. Make my day. I'm going to, there's all kinds of ways to make your self-worth. They're almost always self-destructive. Okay? You want to become a real estate expert. You want to, wheel and deal in the banking industry. You want to go on the Wall Street and undercut everybody and get the insider trading deals. There's a lot of ways you can make yourself feel important and worth being respected. Appreciate your worth. You can go into beauty. Not that you would necessarily, but there are a lot of people who have set out to become more beautiful than they think they are. I once took care of a gal, a lovely gal, in her teen years, and her mother came to me and she said she was arrested for shoplifting. Could you help me? We sat down together, and what did you steal from the store? Fingernail polish. Fingernail polish? Fingernail polish? Really? Did you not have any fingernail polish? No, I have 150 different colors of fingernail polish. I just didn't have these. Within a very short time, she didn't have one piercing, she had a whole row. Anything wrong with that? No. But 1 wasn't enough, 12 wasn't enough, 15 wasn't enough, because she was trying to get recognition as worth. Okay? Over and over again, we find that people are trying desperately to get someone to say, now there's someone I can respect and look up to. Okay? We can make ourselves indispensable. You ever know anybody that was indispensable?
Oh yeah, yeah. We got a guy named Paul, and so I'm gonna make it short. Guy worked for Assistant, and he really did most of the stuff for Assistant, and he was sending the other stuff to our shop. And once he was gone, their stuff has just been messed up ever since then. So, yeah.
He had actually made a name for himself as the only guy who could get everything done.
Yeah.
Self-worth. Wealth, a great way to, because wealth is so easy to measure. Last year I was only worth 1.35 million. Now I'm worth 1.5 million. I had more worth than I had last time. You can measure it. You can actually, see it grow. What happens when there's a recession? People start jumping out of windows because their self-worth went away. Because their money went away? No. Because their self-worth went away. It was being measured by money. Now let's stop. I got to stop right here because I wasted too much time at the beginning on, other stuff. Your worth has to have a foundation. It has to be grounded in reality. Okay? Where does our reality come from about what we're worth? Help me.
Jesus, God.
Absolutely true. After everything has been said and done, if God had not loved us with all of his heart and thought we were worth it, he would have never said from the cross, I love you enough to forgive you. Whatever that is. Whatever that means. That absolute certainty. Now think about it. This goes to every lesson we've ever studied up to this point. Jesus' command to love. All right? He looked at his disciples individually as he washed their feet and demonstrated his love to them. It's my understanding not only that he washed their feet, but he gave them their own individual blessing in that moment. Stop and think. Did that include or did it not include a guy named Judas? It included him. Even when he felt worthless enough to throw his life away, Jesus Christ loved him enough to wash his feet and bless him. That's just the most incredible thing you could ever imagine. Because he was a weightlifter? Because he was wealthy? Because he was worth it in some way? No. Just because he was loved. Zacchaeus was worthless. Worthless. He was a traitor. He was a rebel. He was a scoundrel. He was a bum. He was a thief. He stole enough that he wanted to go home and spend the day in Zacchaeus' house. Have I ever told you the story of Zacchaeus the way I tell it? They were boyhood friends. And Zacchaeus knew Jesus from the very beginning. They grew up together. You won't find this in Scripture. And then Zacchaeus, in order to get even with all the people that picked on him for being little, went to work for the Romans to get even with the people who gave him such a hard time. And he was so good at it, he grew all the way up through and became the chief tax collector of the primary major trade route that went directly through Jericho. He was the chief tax collector of Jericho, the greatest eastern trade route of every caravan that ever went any place in the world, that known world. Think about what this little guy with a little self-worth, who had taken advantage of everyone, skinned everybody alive, including Jesus and his family. And then he hears that Jesus is coming through. I wonder if he still remembers me. I wonder if he still resents me. And as Jesus walks under the sycamore tree, he glances up. Oh, hey, Zacchaeus. I'd like to spend the afternoon at your house. It becomes a great story of personal forgiveness and redemption. With Jesus hanging from the cross saying, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. It's not a stretch to say that he would have forgiven somebody who had abused himself and his family. And so it doesn't fall outside of the realm of what he might have said to someone who had done that. But it becomes this story of where is your worth? What you've done, what you haven't done, what you have. No, that's rock solid. Then it comes from another thing, and we have to be very careful about this because it is the second most important thing we're telling you now. You have to have somebody you can trust who can give you an honest evaluation that you can believe, that you can hold on to, And it better be somebody that's got their head on straight. I married mine. I'm sorry. I didn't want her getting away from me. So I locked her up. Can't go to a place else. And so this morning as I was typing out my email and she went, "You can't say that! You're an idiot! What do you think?" Yes, dear, I'm taking that out right now. She was right. It was wrong for me to have said that. Or tried to say that or typed it out. Make sure you have surrounded yourself with quality people who know Jesus Christ in an intimate and personal way, that have themselves woven into the fabric of faith, who have somehow become fully committed followers of Jesus Christ, that can't think outside of the framework of what would Jesus be doing at this moment, and believe they've got your best intentions at mind. Why does the Bible have so much truth? Do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. Remember it says that? Oh, why would that be important? Because if they've got a screw loose some way or other and they don't really know what's going on, they don't know the truth about who we are and what we're called to be, they're not going to give you that rock solid, quiet support that says, yeah, you got it. You've got that thing nailed. That's super. You're cool. Stay with that. All of a sudden, there's a whole different set of values. Do you make them happy and go with their values? Or do you ask them to come over and help you with your self-worth? You see, ultimately, if you decide that you're going to spread God's love by starting to hang out with people that believe differently, you're ending up creating for yourself a problem, because if you do what is important to build your own self-worth, you're actually tearing them down. Do you see how that works? If my value system is to be a part of God's kingdom and to please my Father in heaven and be submissive and obedient to my Lord and Savior, if you don't follow me, if you don't share that, then somehow, even without me saying a word, that makes you less. You follow? And you're in a constant state of turmoil. One side or the other has to give way for the other. Because you can't both have self-worth if you have fundamentally different values. Can't have it. You have to start with some things in common. And then you have to just dedicate yourself to learning about how to forgive yourself. Brene Brown, in this book that I just finished, Daring Greatly, calls people who can live free of fear, free of guilt, free of anger, free of all of that resentment and regret. She calls those the wholehearted. Isn't that a cool name? They are the wholehearted, which means they don't have an internal conflict going on within them, and they're all torn up and nasty as they try and figure out who they are. They are the wholehearted. I love the way she called them that. But she goes through this whole book talking about how they have to practice both forgiving themselves and being patient and understanding with those who around them who don't always measure up to what they need, and giving people the respect and the approval that they need in order to have worth, even as they receive worth from them. You follow? It's a two-way street. It's a shared thing. Being people of faith gives us an extraordinary advantage over anyone who does not understand faith. we will never have to stand there and wonder, are we worthy of someone's love?